Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grand Cruise Astrology. Today, talking about Venus. That is the big topic for this video, and for the month of July in a lot of ways. I'd center it around Venus, though. There are other things going on, obviously, but I think making Venus the centerpiece really ties in everything else that's going on. So let's start there. This video is being made at the beginning of the month, right around 4th of July, and we have we have a full moon right around the third, which is making a nice, making a nice, uh, it's making a nice aspect to Saturn. It's Sun Moon opposition here, making a nice. The moon's making a nice aspect to Saturn, and the Sun itself is also making a nice aspect to Saturn. So it's a really good time for adherence to tradition and, you know, just the tried and true and what we've always done. And this full moon is bringing a lot of things into light. It's keeping us, this is the most, what we'd call the most yang time of the year, given that in the northern hemisphere, given that we just passed the solstice, and this is the first full moon after the solstice. In the United States, it's right near the 4th of July holiday, and so, this is, the night is very much lit up by the moon, and it's very lunar, and we have the Sun Moon opposition. Things are coming to a culmination. I really feel in a lot of ways this is kind of the culmination of the year, and from here, going forward, we start to disperse and sort of make complete things and make put closure onto some things as we get further and further into the year in the northern hemisphere in relation to the sun, and the moon is just kind of adding to that peak of solar energy, right? This full moon on the 4th of July. So it kind of ties back into solstice, and it all kind of plays out together. It's the first full moon after the solstice. So, here we have that for the beginning of the month. It's a very kind of traditional energy, but that changes as we get further into the month. As we get late in the month, like I said, we're going to have Venus going retrograde, and that's a big piece to this. And as the month starts, we're already in the shadow of the Venus retrograde. So there are some things that are starting to unravel a little bit when it comes to one-to-one connections and balances therein, and the way in which we relate to people on a one-to-one level. This could also, looking at the more material side of Venus, be getting into our relationship to money and material foundations and things like that. But with it being in the sign of Leo, fixed fire sign, this is, I think this is very much heart centered, very much has to do with the heart. Leo rules the heart. So does the sun, has a lot to do with the heart. And but with Venus, this is one-to-one connections that are very heart centered. So they're starting here. We're starting to astrologically speaking, starting to have questions around this. Things are not necessarily on the forward traction that they've been. There is starting to be an inkling or an itch or a need to perhaps maybe rethink what's happening in these dynamics. And so that's sort of the beginning. It just starts with questions, and then once it goes retrograde, it goes into full uh, it goes into a full more introspective and more reflective time. But as we start the month again, there are energies around with this full moon that are, and we're talking about a full moon in Capricorn, which has everything to do with the old guard tradition, 4th of July and country and how we've always done things and that kind of thing, and the celebration of the old and that kind of thing. And with it making a nice aspect to Saturn with the sun and the moon, there's this real kind of more traditional energy around that is having us harken back. Just look to our past, right? Look to our past for the values and the things that have brought us here. This is, you know, this is an energy that's happening everywhere. But being that I'm doing this reading in the United States, it's very kind of akin to what's happening around currently. So that energy changes as we get more into the month, because we're going to have, Mars is already in a, it's already past. Now that we're in July, it's already past that square with Uranus, which is good because things are less combustible when Mars moves out of that area, and it will slowly, as we get further into the month, it will move away from that, and things will get more less spontaneously combustible and surprising, and more the things will be more normalized in relation to Mars, especially once we get to the 12th of July and Mars goes into the sign of Virgo. It's Mars in Virgo is a more dutiful energy. It's about getting things done, taking care of business, making sure you know everything is kind of as it should be, that things are in the right place, and that we are attending to what needs to be done. The party with Mars will be over, because Mars in Leo is quite a nice party, with it making aspect to Uranus in the way that could have really set things off. But it normalizes around the 12th, and so that's good. However, Venus, for really the first week of July, is going to be in a aspect of tension with Uranus. From Leo to Taurus. They're both fixed signs, so it's really this kind of tension between our own personal desires and needs, and what is important to us, and our own personal values around these needs, which is what Uranus is. And there's a real transformation going on around this space, and this can have to do with our habits, is how we make money, spend money. It could get very material like that, but also just our values in general, what's important to us, living here on planet Earth. In an aspect of tension with Venus and a sign of Leo, which has a lot to do with our own heart space, what makes us happy as individuals, what makes us happy as people. Now, with it being with the planet Venus in the sign of Leo, this is about what makes us happy in relation to other people. Like what do we expect to give to another, and what do we expect to receive, right? Where is that balance, right? And so with it making this square aspect to Uranus here, there can be a lot of tension going on in interpersonal relationship. You couple that with the fact that Venus is in shadow and will soon go retrograde. It's just adding an element of unpredictability to our connections. And it's the astrological advice for now, and really while Venus is retrograde, because it's going to be making aspect to Uranus again. Especially, it'll make aspect with Venus. Venus will make aspect with Uranus about 3 times. So really, until we get to, I mean, gosh, this is all the way into the fall, and get to October, it'll kind of finish itself out completely. But really, between now and then, especially while Venus is retrograde until the 12th of September, it's a time in one-to-one connections to be expecting the unexpected. Um, to be a little more, uh, yeah, just to be a little bit more prepared to be surprised. That things may not be as we think they will be, and to not project forward, as far as relationships go, to not project too forward rigidly, another person's place or role within your life, right? That doesn't mean necessarily anything bad. It just means that things may change. There could be some changes afoot, not only with them, but with you and your relationship to them and whoever them may be, any one-to-one connection. This could be romantic, this could be business, this could be friends. The sign of Leo has a lot to do with kind of fifth house orientation. So, this could very well be children. This could also be lovers. So, expect the unexpected, right? This can be exciting, and there can be the unexpected to the upside as well. This can be surprisingly exciting and good and fun, but with it being square, I wouldn't try to I wouldn't try to project anything that's happening in the moment forward as being how it is, right? This is a time where things can get really interesting. They can get very experimental, and they can get very unpredictable. So long as you are not, your expectations aren't rooted in anything consistent, have fun with the energy, right? And see where it goes. And if you are surprised to the downside by how people are acting or uh, communicating in any unusual way, then understand that it's the season for it, and it'll pass. so, so that's that energy there. Yeah. So yeah, Mars is moving into a more dutiful place. Jupiter's chugging along there. Once we get later into the month, Mars and Jupiter are going to make a nice trine aspect in Earth signs. I do think, we're going to be, even though Venus, like I said, is going to go retrograde at the end of the month, Mars and Jupiter are going to be a nice, those two planets really like each other. When they get together harmoniously, there's going to be a lot of physical energy and drive and optimism to get things done. With that Mars there again in the sign of Virgo, making a trine aspect from Taurus, where Jupiter is. This is a really going to be a great time to get some work done, to just clean the house, to to do what you need to do to tie up the loose ends at work, to start the new business, just to get things off the ground. I mean, it looks like a really good time just to dig in, okay, and to make things happen as far as the work that you need to get done in life, right? Because it's moving out of Leo, and it's going to be making a nice aspect to Jupiter. Um, it is going to, there is going to be Mars is going to go into opposition for a couple of days there to Saturn, and so I will say this: right around the 20th through the 22nd, what I'm seeing there. Yeah, a couple of days there. So 20th, 22nd. That's a kind of a weekend there. Um, that's not a time to push your energy too far too fast, and absolutely not a time to take any unnecessary risk or chances. Um, that's it's a time to use your physical energy in a disciplined way, but it's not time to use your passion and will to push anything forward. And if you're feeling, with that energy, it can feel a little stifling and restrictive with Saturn there across from Mars. Um, if you're feeling that, it's a good time to try to use the energy, but in a disciplined, structured way. Not a time to go take chances, unnecessary risk, because you could very easily hurt yourself. But it is a good time to try to use some of that energy and dig in the garden, or get on a treadmill or something that's has some guardrails to it, right? And it's not too out there, right? Uh, Not putting yourself on the line. So yeah, that's going on 22nd with Mars. Other than that, it looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, Mercury is also going to be going into Leo, and it's going to be making some of these aspects that I've been talking about. The beginning of the month that Mercury is in the sign of Cancer. So Very good time to be feeling sentiment and expressing the sentimental side of ourselves and really spending time with family and loved ones and people we feel an emotional bond with. Great time to be connecting and networking with people on that front and just to being more chummy and folksy, But once we get into once we get into about the what is that, the 12th, 13th, 14th, Mercury will move into the sign of Leo, and it's a very expeditious energy. It's just very out there. It's a great time to market this yourself. Great time to be seen. Uh, just I don't know. It's a great time to be in lights. Obviously this is going to depend on your own personal chart, but with Mercury and Leo, it's a fun time. It's a social time. We're putting our heart on our sleeve and just telling it like it is. It's magnanimous. It's can be even dramatic too. Especially with Venus going retrograde. Uh, you know, Watch your interactions with other people on a one-to-one because things could go over the top and be understood the wrong way, especially once we get to, let's see, about the 23rd. Again, just after that, Mars makes that aspect with Saturn. So right around that, really that weekend, that weekend of the, I'd say from that Thursday to the 23rd, 24th. So that Thursday, the 20th to the 24th of July, that long weekend there is going to have some bumps. I mean, because Mercury is going to go into square aspect with Uranus, and that's going to be a time where we can easily get a little dramatic and go over the top, and just we can easily upset the wrong people if we're not careful. Just be mindful of that. It's going to pass pretty quick. It's Mercury. Mercury and Uranus don't do horribly together, but it's a time to be very mindful of your audience. Let me just say it like that. Um, yeah. By the end of the month, Mercury will move into Virgo, and it'll get a little bit more practical material on a lot of fronts once we get more to the end of the month here. But getting back to Venus, it's going to go retrograde on the 23rd of the month, last week of the month, and it's going to stay retrograde until we get to early September, right around September 4th, and it'll go direct. And during that time, it's going to be making off and on. And I'm not going to get into the all. Well, you know what? We can look at it right now. Let's look at it. All the dates when it's actually going to go. As I told you, right around the fourth, fifth, we have Venus. Actually, that'd be the second, third, fourth, fifth. We have Venus square to Uranus. It's already happening as I make this video. It will happen again when Venus goes retrograde and we get to right around that second week of August. So right around the 9th, 10th, it will, as it's going retrograde, it will hit square with Uranus again. And really, the retrograde square, when a planet is retrograde and it hits a square to the outer planets, that's typically when you have the most, I don't want to say dysfunctional, that's not the right word, but that's when you have the least linear traction on the energies themselves. And that's when they're a little more unpredictable, especially when we're talking about a planet like Uranus being involved. And when you're talking about Venus, we're talking about one-to-one connections and relationships. So I think that was probably the peak of this Venus retrograde is going to be right around that early August time, that second week of August. That looks like peak chaos potentially with this Venus retrograde. And then when it goes forward again, it will make another square aspect to Uranus, and that'll be right at the end of September, the last couple of days of September. And by then, The energy will not be a stranger, it will be very familiar. And we will be making the final we will be making the final adjustments we need to make. Now, we're talking about we're talking about Venus in relation to Uranus. We're talking about outside the box, outside the norm. We're talking about unconventional. We're talking about revolutionary. You know, and so there are a lot of things happening socially, right? Because we're talking about Venus here. A lot of a lot of really powerful, sudden, revolutionary ideas that are being just very rapidly changed and revolutionized. It's happening. There could be some conflict and some tension around this from yeah, I mean really from early July all the way till we get to the end of September. So this Venus going retrograde is having us reflect and really get clear and understanding. Okay, what's really happening here? Let's take a look. We're not only reflecting on our one-to-one interpersonal relationships, but we're also reflecting inwardly of how we relate to our relationships and even relate to ourselves, right? How does you relate to you? How does me relate to me? I mean, like what is our connection to this three-dimensional experience, right? So these are all things that are coming up. It's very relationship oriented in our connection because we're not alone. We do have interdependence. So how do we connect? How does that change? How does that revolutionize, right? It could be very surprising, very powerful, very exciting, but very different, very unusual. And it can change things in relationship. I will say that when Venus goes retrograde again, if there is some kind of break in relationship during this retrograde, it will likely be revisited when Venus goes direct, and that'll be in early September and moving forward from there. It will be revisited again, or at least understood in some capacity. It will probably be revisited, though, to be finalized in one way or another. Um, but anyway, that's the energy that's coming up. We're already in the shadow of it. We can probably already start to feel some rumblings here, and that will continue, and that will be with us for a while. So that's what I got for July. It looks good though. Especially as we get later in the month. Once Venus does go retrograde, that's its own lesson. But then it does look really good. I like what Mars and Jupiter are doing together. It looks like there's going to be some really positive traction in other areas of life, and this looks like the more material side of life to actually put our foot in the ground, keep our head down, do what we need to do. So if nothing else, focus your attention there and kind of take the interpersonal relationships day to day with a grain of salt as far as trying to project forward what they mean and what they are going to be in the future long term, because that can be a little unpredictable right now. So that's what I got. Hope this was helpful, and I will talk to you on the next video. Bye.